Hello folks, my name is Georgios Papadopoulos and welcome to yet another COMNET protocols video. Today we are going to talk about MAC sublayer address types in Ethernet. Note that our source for this video is the IEEE 802.3 standard. In Ethernet there are two types of MAC addresses. We have the individual address, also called a unicast address, which is associated with a particular station on the network, and the group address, which is associated with one or more stations. Now, there are two types of group address. The multicast address, which is associated with a group of stations that are logically related, and the broadcast address. This is a predefined multicast address that denotes all stations on a given LAN. It is important to note that a source address is always a unicast address, as a frame can only originate from a specific station. In contrast, the destination address may be unicast, multicast, or broadcast. Let's look at an example. Consider the following scenario illustrated here, where four stations are connected by an Ethernet cable with a network interface card NIC in between them. In unicast mode, station A creates a frame and sends it into a station with the unicast address C over the Ethernet cable. Since this frame has a destination address that is a unicast address, only the network interface card associated with that address should receive it and pass it to the station, while all other network cards will by default discard it. The key takeaway here is the following. A unicast destination address defines only one destination, while the relationship between the transmitter and the receiver is one-to-one. Next, we have the multicast address example. Let's assume that stations C and D are subscribed to multicast group address M. Now, in this multicast case, when the station A sends the frame with the multicast destination address M over the Ethernet cable, only the stations that have registered the multicast address M will receive the frame. Now, the key takeaway here is the following. A multicast destination address is associated to a group of stations, while the relationship between the transmitter and the receivers is one-to-many. As mentioned previously, the broadcast address is a special case of the multicast address, where the recipients are all the stations on the LAN. Thus, when a station A sends the frame in broadcast over the Ethernet cable, all B, C, and D stations recognize the broadcast address and receive this frame. The key takeaway here is the following. The relationship between the transmitter and the receivers is one-to-all. Finally, it is worth mentioning that it is possible to configure a network interface card to operate in a promiscuous receive mode. In this mode of operation, the network card accepts all valid frames regardless of their destination address field values. In other words, it allows a station to read frames intended for other stations on the network. This mode is mainly used for diagnostic and monitoring purposes, for example during packet sniffing to analyze or troubleshoot network traffic. Now, coming back to our example scenario, and let's assume that station B is configured to operate in a promiscuous mode. Similar to the unicast example, when the station A sends a frame to station with the unicast address C over the Ethernet cable, then in the scenario station C, which is associated with the unicast destination address, will receive the frame. Station B operating in promiscuous mode will also accept the frame, while station D will by default discard it. And that's all, folks, on MAC sublayer address types in Ethernet technology.